different connectors and stuff like that. Everybody had a different setup, so they had to bring their
Instead of getting that,
gear to match the setup they had.
I'm trying to keep mine out of your way. Just sit here.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I'm Main City, come to order. We're back in session. And then electronic devices, make sure they're on vibrate and off.
thank you, Sheriff. All right, any matters we need to address before the jury returns?
Not further.
All right, thank you. Then, Sheriff, when you're ready. When the jury. Reflect that all our jurors have returned. All your names.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state will call Ms. Daniels to the stand.
You put your left hand on the face the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall now give the court in the case now being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Daniels.
Hi,
Ma'am, if you could please tell the court and the jurors your name and occupation, please.
my name is Patricia M. Daniels. I am employed by Duke University Medical Center. I am a staff specialist.
And what are your duties as a staff specialist, ma'am?
We house and store the medical records for the health system. We also release them for the health system.
And how long have you been employed by Duke Medical?
37 years.
And how many times have you had to come to court and do this?
Oh my goodness, many. I could not give you a number.
And ma'am, are you familiar with the business of the business side of the hospital and how the records are kept?
Yes.
And ma'am, how are those records kept?
The records are created at or near the time of treatment. And then right now, all of the records are dictated into the electronic system. Prior to that, there was a paper chart, which we store off-site.
And in December of 2012, was it the paper chart system or was it the computer system that was online?
Both.
Okay. And ma'am, are you familiar with how the records are collected once a subpoena is sent to your office?
Yes, what we do, once we receive the subpoena, we will identify the patient by the name and social security number if we have it, and we will link that to the medical record number in the system, and then we will pull all of the information related to that patient, either from paper charts or electronic charts, and compile it into a database and print out the information or put it on a DVD and send it to the courts.
And if you print out this, or when you prepare this document, how do you certify that these are the documents that were sent from your office?
We have an affidavit that is developed for our department for records that we send to court, and it is signed off by our director.
And do you recall who was your director in 2012?
Barbara Woolley.
And are you familiar with her signature?
Yes.
Now, you stated that the records are created at the time of treatment for the patients.
At the time, or near the exact time that the patient's treated, yes.
And can you tell me what types of records would come from, like when a patient initially comes in to the hospital? What kind of document would be?
Well, usually upon admission, they do an admission history. And then from that history, they can see various things and determine how they have to treat the patient.
Ma'am, I'm going to approach what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 14. Your Honor, I will advise the court that this copy has been redacted for social security number, dates, phone numbers, and addresses of the victim.
All right, thank you.
Actually, it'd be helpful to take a look at this. If I can do it now, I can do it later. I've been served with Discovery, but not a redacted copy of Discovery. So I don't know how Your Honor would like to handle it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask that you step into the courtroom to the the avenue by giving courtesy.
So where are the redactions of you showing? Your Honor, this is, I always mention civil court because in civil court you have pretrial conferences and this kind of thick stuff. I would just encourage us to do this in advance to make things go smoother. I don't want to interrupt their flow or send the jury out when something's redacted and I hadn't seen it. I just feel duty bound to go through it. To quote President Reagan, to trust but verify.
Thank you. Ms. Daniels, I would say you can step down if you like, but maybe it's comfortable to see this.
I can sit right
there. And so if you'd like to step down, you can. You'll just sit there and it won't take Mr. Charles long to kind of flip through and see where redacted information is.
If you'd like to show me where the redactions are, I'd be happy to go with you over them, and that would be might be quicker.
Absolutely. Where the redactions are? These are.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm gonna step up to my office and get my computer and write that down. So,
Okay, I'll ask my question when you get back.
all right.
Go to the,
The redactions were the cell phone number, information, address of the victim. Here as well. And then here, his birthday was redacted. And those are the redactions that have been through.
Barbara
Those are the only places where.
Barbara Wood,
W-O-O.
L-L-E-Y.
Oh, like
All right, let me just take a peek at what these are.
Absolutely.
And do you have a copy for me of the redactions? Look over this.
You don't have one there.
Court is back in session.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Over those records, and the prosecutors are going to make me a copy of the redacted version that will be that exhibit. I guess just since the jury's out, just to inquire if, obviously if these are certified copies that Ms. Daniels is aware through her expertise in 37 years knows these are Duke records for this particular patient. But I mean, if we're getting into putting those into evidence without medical testimony, maybe I'm concerned about something that's not going to happen. But certainly, we would be objecting to if those records, we're going to try to get them into Ms. Daniels, and maybe that's not what they're going to do. So I'll sit down and guess I'll find out.
Court.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Then it appears that the review of the redacted copy has been completed, and we're going to bring the jury back in. Stephen Sutton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioners, approach with State's Exhibit number 14.
Yes. Ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 14. Ma'am, do you recognize this?
Yes.
And ma'am, what do you recognize that exhibit to be?
This is a copy of this patient's medical file. It has a copy of our affidavit signed with our director, a copy of an AKA sheet, which means he was given an alias, and a copy of the subpoena that was issued, and a copy of his medical records.
And have you had the opportunity to look through those documents, and are those the documents that are routinely kept in your charge?
Aside from the redacted information, yes.
And are these normal business records kept by your company?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to introduce State's Exhibit number 14 into evidence.
Do you wish that you look at someone's bodies or ask any questions or have any objections?
Just very briefly. Ms. Daniels, in your 37 years at Duke, your position is in the administration of the records, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you a medical doctor?
No, sir.
Okay. And are you a medical professional other than working in the administration?
No, sir.
Thank you. That would be my question, Your Honor.
Thank you. You heard on the tender of the exhibit.
No, Your Honor.
I don't as to their coming in as business records. After that, I may have a question.
Thank you. The State's Exhibit number 14 is admitted. Back to you, Ms.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioner, approach witness.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, if I can turn your attention to certain parts of the document. And I'm going to show you this page that's marked 104 at the back. Page, ma'am, can you tell me, are you familiar with that document?
This is our admission data form. This form is the information that we call our admission history, where they take the information when you come in, either from you, and if you're not able to take it, they will get the information from whoever is accompanying you.
And for what reason is that information taken?
In order to treat the patient, they need to know certain things like medications, allergies. They need to know the history of the current condition.
And who provides that? Are you familiar with who would provide that information for this sheet?
Your Honor, here I would object as to a witness who's in administration testifying about how nurses are doing something in this particular job. I mean, it's just, I would object to it coming in this manner.
You wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. My question was if she does know how the procedure is to fill this paperwork out.
As to what the records reflect there, and to the extent that you know the process that generates these records of which you are one of the keepers of the records, the objection is overruled.
Ma'am, do you know how are you familiar with the procedures of how somebody would take that information and put it on this sheet? Where would that information come from?
In the normal course of business, it would come from the patient when they are admitted for treatment. And if the patient was unable, if there was anyone accompanying the patient, they would take it from that person.
And from that document, are you able to ascertain whether that information on this particular sheet came from the defendant or from the victim or somebody else?
No, it's not documented here.
It's not documented?
As to who gave them the information, no.
Okay. Your Honor, that's all the questions that the state has.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Daniels, Mr. Charles?
Ms. Daniels, thank you for coming today. We would have no questions at this point.
Mr. Daniels, we can transfer those back together. Form action received. When all that's done, you're free to go. You're welcome to stay.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask that Ms. Daniels be relieved of her burden of subpoena.
Do you have any objection to being released from subpoena?
I do not. For the
Thank you. You're
defense.
released from that subpoena, Sandy. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state would call Officer Fisher to the stand.
This way, sir. You said what's it up here?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall now give the court in the case now being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon.
Sir, could you please state your name and occupation for the court?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Corporal Christopher C. Fisher. I'm with the Durham Police Department and have been since 1996.
And what, if anything, did you do before that?
I was a police officer for Hillsborough Police Department from 1993 to 1996. Before that, I was a Marine, still am a Marine. I was a Marine from 1988 to 1992.
Thank you, sir. And, sir, were you on duty on the 18th of December 2012?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And in what capacity were you on patrol? Or were you in uniform?
I was assigned to the Uniform Patrol Division. I was specifically a motor officer, which meant I rode motorcycles and conducted traffic enforcement.
And have you always had that particular position?
No, ma'am, I started that assignment in 2007, and I left that assignment in 2013.
And where are you currently in your position?
Currently, I'm on uniform patrol, District 1, which is the east side of Durham, on C Squad.
Now, you stated that you were on the motor patrol
Correct.
division. Could you kind of explain that to the jury, tell them what that means?
Sure. That assignment during daytime operations or hours, I'm assigned to the motorcycle, which meant I rode a motorcycle, marked police motorcycle. I had specific duties of conducting funeral escorts, traffic enforcement, community policing projects where I'd go and show the kids the motorcycles and they would entertain them. Also, I had a car assigned to me, so I drove the car home, drove the car to work. Then I would get on my motorcycle, do my duties at that position, and I would transfer back to the car.
And sir, can you tell me what your hours of operation were on 12/18/2012?
Yes, ma'am. I started at 7 a.m. That's when I began my shift, and I worked until 4:30 p.m.
And do you recall anything out of the ordinary happening on December 18th, 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what that was?
I'm a supervisor, and in that capacity on the motorcycle unit, I was actually in the District 5 substation, which is where our office was.
And where is the District 5 substation?
That's located on Rigby Avenue. I was in there doing some administrative duties, catching up on paperwork, when radio traffic notified me that an officer had been injured or an officer was down. At that time, I left my office, got into my patrol vehicle, which was an unmarked black Crown Vic Victoria. It's black in color. It's marked with police blue lights and a siren. And I responded with lights and sirens as I was actually going to the location where the officer was reported down.
And did you arrive at the location where the officer was down?
No, ma'am. It was a rapidly evolving event, meaning that there was a lot of information coming out over the radio. Also have a computer terminal inside the car. That computer gives me updates of information, so it's not too safe to actually read the computer and drive at the same time. So I was monitoring the radio and driving, and then when updates would come available, I would pull over and get the updates as to what was coming out of the computer. Before I got to the location of the incident where the officer was reported down, I heard radio traffic that the suspect vehicle was registered to an address on Newcastle, which is on the north side of Durham City. And I diverted from going to the scene of where the officer was down at, and I went into the direction of Newcastle Road to
And
respond.
where is Newcastle Road located?
Newcastle runs off of Stadium Drive, which is off of Horton Road.
Okay. And you stated that you diverted to that secondary location. Do you recall the address that it was given?
I have a supplemental report that I put that address on. I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to say out of memory.
Do you remember the road?
It was Newcastle Road.
And what, if anything, did you do based on the information that you had received over the radio?
I knew that there were several other officers by radio traffic diverting to that scene as well. As a capacity of a supervisor, as a police officer, it's very stressful to hear that come over the radio. That's the worst thing you can hear. I wanted to expedite or hurry up and get there so that I could make a safe approach to the scene and have my officers approach in a safe manner, as safe as possible, so that no other injuries would be, nobody else would get hurt.
And based on that, can you tell me how how the normal radio traffic was versus how it was on this day?
Normal radio traffic, there is breaks within, if a call is dispatched to us over the radio, there's normally a pause of a period of time. On this particular day with this incident, radio traffic was pretty much everybody wanted to be talking, if that makes any sense. It was a lot of traffic. It was very hectic. It was very, I was trying to understand what was evolving, what was important, what was not important to me. There was 2 different crime scenes. At this point, we had a crime scene where the officer was reported down at, and now we have a second possible crime scene of where the suspect vehicle and the suspect may be at. So resources are going in a chaotic, it's not organized. It's very rapid. So my #1 goal when I was responding there is to get there and take lead or find out if there was somebody in charge so that we could do it as safe as possible.
And based on the radio traffic that you were able to overhear while you were responding, what, if anything, were you looking for on Newcastle Road?
This vehicle description was a burgundy Nissan. I'm trying to think of the name of the, other than Nissan is something else. It was a burgundy Nissan vehicle that the suspect was reportedly driving, and as I was driving to the scene, I was actually looking for the vehicle as I was going to the scene.
And which scene are you speaking of at this point?
I'm sorry, Newcastle Road scene. I'm on my way down. I traveled down Guest Road to Kirkwood, took Kirkwood to Stadium, and then Stadium to Newcastle.
And how long did it take you to arrive at Newcastle?
I would say between 3 to 4 minutes at the most.
And do you recall what time of day it was when you heard this initial call out?
It was daylight hours. It was before. It was before lunchtime. I would say it was between 9 and 10:30, 11 o'clock.
And do you recall what time you arrived on the scene at Newcastle?
I don't recall exactly what time I arrived, but when I arrived, there was some radio traffic of officers. I heard over the radio just before I turned off of Stadium onto Newcastle, an officer said that the vehicle was in fact parked in the parking lot at that location of Newcastle, the apartment buildings on Newcastle Road.
And what, if anything, did you do based on that information?
I came over the radio and instructed all the officers that were responding to Newcastle to meet me at the corner of Newcastle and Stadium. Immediately took command, which meant that all officers coming out there would have to answer to me regardless of the rank, so that I could keep account of who was there, where they were at, where they were going, and to give specific information to them so they'll know what their job function was as far as evacuations, perimeter confinement, and that kind of thing.
When you say evacuations, could you please explain to the jury what you would be evacuating at that point?
The apartment address that came back on the suspect vehicle for Newcastle, it was a 2-story apartment complex with, I think it's 16 apartments within each building. There are several buildings. First, you have to get an eye. You have to know exactly which building we're looking at, and then whoever is in the path of a potential gunfire situation, I wanted to either evacuate those people, determine who, if it was actually occupied, evacuate them if I could, and if I couldn't, I wanted them to remain in place and not go outside the building.
And based on your training experience, why were you taking these precautions when approaching this particular scene?
A police officer had already been reported shot, and I didn't want any injuries from civilians or officers or the suspect.
Your Honor, permission to approach with what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15A.
Smith?
Thank you.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15A. So without identifying it to the jury, can you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that?
From the information that was given to me on that date.
And what is that exhibit?
It's an aerial photograph of Newcastle Apartments, the roadways of Wildwood Stadium and Newcastle in particular. There's other homes and buildings within the picture, but I can identify the Newcastle Road address.
And are you familiar with that area?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
How are you familiar with that area?
When I arrived to Durham Police Department in 1996, I was actually assigned to North Durham District. I worked there as a patrol officer answering calls for 3.5 years. Then I was promoted in '99, and I worked as a supervisor in that district for about 1.5 years.
And what district was that located in?
We call that District 2, which is the north side. If you're familiar with the Durham Police Department headquarters, if you walk out of that building on Chapel Hill Street and you look north, that's District 2. And it goes from there all the way to Traeger with some intermediate breaks.
And sir, does that map accurately depict the area, the location, as you recall it on December 18th, 2012?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
And sir, can that help you here today illustrate your testimony to the jury?
Yes, it can.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to introduce State's Exhibit number 15 into evidence.
No objection for illustrative purposes.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 15A is admitted for illustrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, permission to approach and have that exhibit published to the jury via Elmo.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'm going to introduce you to Elmo.
No.
Elmo is our friend. Deputy Gray, if you could Hey, sir, as you can see, this has been marked 15A. What I'm going to ask you to do is if you could kind of orientate us to this area and show us what we're looking at here. Feel free to use the marker.
I want to say first off, me and electronics don't get along too good, so if I break something, I hope I'm not responsible. If you look at the mark,
It's easier probably just to look at the map.
if you look at the marker, that's pretty much north, directional north. I approached from this direction down Stadium Drive. Right as I got to where this orange icon is, that's where I stopped my patrol vehicle on this date, and I had all the officers responding to the location to meet me there, which was out of sight of the suspect location. So element of surprise would be on our side, and we would be out of the line of fire.
And could you please mark that area with a circle?
You want me to mark on this?
Yes.
I would I would say that would be the general area I was in.
And from here, are you able to locate where the apartment was for that, where the plate came back?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
And if you'll mark that with an X on the map. And during your time on this scene, were you able to actually locate the suspect vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, I did locate the suspect vehicle in the parking lot, approximately right here by the tip of my marker.
If you could mark a small triangle for the suspect vehicle. Thank you, sir. And using this diagram, could you tell me what actions you took out on that scene?
I instructed 4 officers to immediately surround the building, two of the officers I instructed to do so were armed with patrol rifles. They are additional weapons other than the sidearm that we carry on a day-to-day basis. They are specially trained officers, so that they're trained with that weapon, they qualify with that weapon. I'm actually an instructor for that weapon. So I wanted a patrol rifle on each side of the building, one in the back, one in the front, and 2 other officers armed with sidearms were to go to other angles of the building so that the building was fully covered by each corner, meaning that no matter who was looking, there was somebody looking at the building at all times, if that makes sense.
Thank you, sir. If you could, at this point, sign and date that exhibit.
Is it matter where?
Just up on the, on the border there. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness?
Yes.
Sir, I'm going to approach with what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15.
Thank you.
We can get the light, please. So I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 15. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it?
It's a aerial photograph of what I just saw here. It's just larger. I see the roadways of Newcastle Stadium and Wildwood intersection, and I know from experience that the building that I was at that day is on this photograph.
And can this help you in your testimony here today?
A lot better, yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to introduce State's Exhibit number 15 into evidence.
No objection for illustrative purposes.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 15 is admitted for illustrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to have the witness step down and publish and testify from it in front of the jury.
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Under that, move
Since I know you're not fond of electronics,
This is more my speed.
we went old school for you.
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, could you please identify the markings that you had done on the previous, you can point those out to the jury.
Sure. I'll start off with Stadium Drive, which is where I park my patrol vehicle. I parked right where, or near where this blue icon is, and I had all officers responding to that location to meet me at that corner. Once we all parked here, and again, I had heard over the radio that the suspect vehicle was seen in the parking lot. The suspect vehicle was parked about midway in the parking spaces facing this direction, which that would be east. This building here was the building we were focusing our attention on because that was the apartment that the registration address came back to.
When you say you deployed your men in a strategic location, could you show on the map here how you deployed your men for the safest approach to this building?
Yes, ma'am. There's a shrub line or tree line indicated here. I instructed I needed 2 officers utilizing cover by the tree line to go to this side of the target building. I wanted 1 officer on this corner, which would have been the northwest corner. I wanted 1 officer in the tree line looking at the northeast corner. The northwest corner is where I deployed 1 of my rifles. I then had another rifle utilizing cover by this building deployed on the southeast corner of the target building. I had a 4th officer that was watching it from what is we call the southwest corner. I had taken up cover here behind some trees that are indicated on this aerial map. I was here, and again, I'm an instructor for the patrol rifle, and I had my patrol rifle with me that day. I was still in command, and once I got all the officers where I wanted them to cover the building so we could monitor if anybody was coming out, either by window or by doorway, we would know about it. Once I got those officers in place, by radio, I then started my other officers to go door to door, away, not to the target apartment, but adjoining apartments, to let them either evacuate or stay in place.
And from here, did you have a view of the parking lot?
I did.
And did you have eyes on the suspect vehicle yourself?
I did.
Now, you stated that you're familiar with this area. Are you familiar with Horton Road?
Yes, I am.
And on this map, where in conjunction with this map would Horton Road be?
If you continue, this is Stadium Drive, if you continue up Stadium Drive approximately 1 block, Horton Road runs this direction. So approximately 1 block up, you'll go past Cherry Crest, which is a side street, and then right after Cherry Crest is Horton Road. There's a traffic signal light there.
And on Horton Road, is there a supermarket or Food Lion?
There is.
And where would that be located in reference to this map?
If you travel up Stadium Drive, which would be northbound Stadium Drive, passing Cherry Crest, which is just out of this camera view, when you get to Horton Road, you make a left on Horton Road. That will put you traveling west on Horton. And you would go, I would say, between 1/10 to 2/10 of a mile. You would reach the intersection of Guest Road and Horton Road. And right there on the corner, that would be the northeast corner of that intersection. There's a Food Lion right there.
And where would that be in relation to this map?
If my hand could suffice, this would be a general area of where Food Lion is.
So it would be northwest?
Correct.
Okay. And you stated that you're very familiar with this area?
Yes, ma'am.
As a crow flies from this apartment complex to that Food Lion, can you approximate a distance?
I'm sorry, the 1 to 2/10 mile is the crow flying route. If you go by roadway, I would put that as maybe a half mile, maybe a little bit more than a half mile by roadway. So 1 to 2 tenths by the profiles.
Thank you, sir. You'll take a seat. Sir, I'm going to approach with what's been marked as items number 16 and 17, state's exhibits. Sir, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State 16 and State's Exhibit 17. Are those familiar to you?
Yes, ma'am, now.
Did you take these photos?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Are they an accurate depiction of what you saw out on the day of August or December 18th, 2012?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
And can they help you illustrate your testimony here today?
Yes, ma'am. The photograph of the side of the panel of the car indicates, like I stated earlier, the vehicle was parked facing, which would face an eastbound by map.
Okay, hold on one second. Your Honor, at this time the state would like to introduce State's Exhibits number 16 and 17 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. State's exhibits 16 and 17 are admitted for illustrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, now, Mr. Fisher, if you can tell us what we're looking at in those, and you can feel free to tap on Elmo and let him help you. Your Honor, permission to publish these exhibits by Elmo.
Allowed?
Thank you. And if you can tell us what we're looking at here?
That's the driver's side of the vehicle that was identified as the suspect vehicle on that date.
Okay. And if you'll let us look at the next exhibit? And what are we looking at here?
That was the tag number that had been broadcasted by another officer saying that that vehicle was in the parking lot and gave that tag as the tag being on that vehicle.
Now, while you were on this scene, what if anything were other officers doing? Were you able to hear that on the radio?
When I got on the scene, we had 2 different crime scenes, like I stated earlier. We had actually went to another channel so that it would relieve radio traffic. Radio traffic for the scene I was at was on one channel, and radio traffic for the original scene was on another channel. So it gave us more airtime to talk.
And while on the scene, what, if anything, were you able to determine about the occupancy of the apartment at Newcastle?
The apartment was an upstairs apartment. The view that I had was the sliding glass door of the apartment. The doorway itself was not in my view. That would have been a side view. I was focusing on the sliding glass door of that apartment identified.
And how long did you remain on that scene?
I'm estimating by memory, approximately 1 hour.
And based on your personal knowledge, was anybody located at that residence?
Not what, can you repeat that one more time?
Based on your personal knowledge, was anybody located at that residence?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the questions I have at this time for this officer.
Thank you. Questions for Officer Fisher and Mr. Chong?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Corporal Fisher.
How are you, sir?
Doing well, how are you?
Can't complain a bit.
Very well. You had, I thought, mentioned something about mobile display computers or mobile display terminal. Is that correct in your direct?
It's, we call it MDCs, mobile data computers.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me. And there was traffic that morning, just like the radio on the MDCs?
Yes, sir. If we say something over the police radio, the communicator that's on that channel will add those notes of what we say to the call, and that will be transferred into the call on the computer screen, so you get a very annoying tone or bell saying that there's been an update. So that was constant because it was constant traffic. So that information that was being given out over the radio was going into the computer. Yes, sir.
And is it possible using the terminal to communicate with particular officers or particular squad cars? So to car as opposed to the terminal going through the computer-aided dispatch? Is that what you're describing? I guess to help us out, describe how it ends up going from your computer terminal to everyone getting it, if you know.
I have a very limited knowledge of computers. What I do know is information that communications wants us to know can be given out over the note screen. The computers can also, I can put notes into the screen myself, but I wouldn't do that while I was driving because it's too dangerous.
And I appreciate that, thank you. So have you communicated, is it like texting, other than obviously it's not texting, but for example, could you use this to send a message to another car?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you seeing, I'm not asking you what you saw, but were you seeing messages like that going to you and you going out? Not when you were moving, because of course you don't want to be texting or typing while you're moving, but when you were at a stationary location, did you send any of these type messages to other folks?
No, sir, I did not. If I may clarify.
Yes, sir.
When I'm getting the information such as if they give out the suspect description of the vehicle, it goes into the notes. If they give out a tag number, it goes into the notes. To verify that I'm actually not going by memory, but I can verify the tag number, then I would have to look into that note section, look for the tag number, find it, and confirm that what I thought is actually the tag number. That would be an example, but I would not be typing, I would stop and type anything into the computer, not for this call of this nature.
Okay. Did you see any messages like that that your terminal received? Messages that didn't go through the computer-aided dispatch? If you remember.
I don't remember any. I just know that I did not put any messages in because I was too busy trying to drive and get to the scene.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And do you know how long these messages within your own car's computer are stored?
I know that they're stored for a period of time, but the exact amount of time I'm not unsure of.
And let me ask you, in this case, did you personally receive a request to preserve any messages about this incident?
No, sir.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may I approach, just to take a look at those exhibits? Retrieve
Yeah.
and approach the witness.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
May I approach the counsel? With the court reporter, please.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Your Honor. Corporal Fisher, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Do you, any questions on read arrest?
No reading records,
I'll see you. Please step in.
Thank you, sir.
Hunter, do we have a brief comfort break?
Yes, let's take about a 10-minute recess. Let's see, about 5 minutes until by that clock on the wall, so that's about 13 minutes That's not a whole lot. Remember my admonitions, please, and while everyone else remains seated, jury's excused. We're gonna do it. We're outside of the presence of the jury. Any matters we need to address before we take our recess?
Nothing for the state, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense.
Sheriff will be in recess for 12 minutes and 38 seconds.
Of course, it recess. 12 minutes.